So welcome to FUELcast / Risk It for the Brisket TV. I am Drew Spanding, tech entrepreneur and founder of Priceslide. And of course, yours truly, the man, the myth, the legend, the famous,
overall
the
fun
infamous
guy.
Ian Murphy.
What's happening, my man?
This is fun.
This is a little bit different. This is sort of a setup that we used to do with Chris, my buddy Chris Kuhn, a couple seasons ago. When we were up in the restaurant doing this, and we have this fancy studio in the basement of the Iron Pig here, and we figured we'd try something a little different.
I like it.
Bring the couch back, a little chill.
Yeah, you sent me a text of your new setup. I'm like, this is great. It's got all your things behind you.
Yeah,
which I think this is a nice addition.
I covered up Big Gretch, though. You can't see the old Gretch.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we've been talking about, we're refining this format here and there and trying some different things. And we've always talked about, trying to stay on trend with some topics. And
it's kind of like a reaction video. Something big just happened.
Yeah.
And, you can be an opinionated figure at times, my friend.
And
absolutely. Ian Reacts seems like a fun thing I think people would like to see.
Did you just come up with that?
Yeah, why not?
Oh, all right.
Ian Reacts. This is the segment, Ian Reacts.
I hate putting my name on things. But I'm all right with that. So there's this larger conversation that is happening about free speech.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought when we were discussing some topics, I thought that a good one might be Alex Jones being reinstated on Twitter.
I saw that, yeah.
And
what do you think?
Well,
I'm so curious what your reaction is to Alex Jones, because I think a lot of people probably think already, I already know what Ian thinks.
InfoWars was a thing for a long time. I'm not sure if it still is. I know he and Steven Crowder now are doing sort of a thing together.
Steven Crowder has a pretty funny impersonation of Alex Jones. It's pretty spot on.
The short of it for me is I think it is good. It is a good thing. Now, whether or not you agree with anything that Alex Jones... Okay, so if you don't know who Alex Jones is a self-described far-right, alternative, alt-right, conspiracy theorist.
Wait. I want to pause there. So what's the definition of a conspiracy theorist?
Well, that's why I try to kind of use air quotes a little bit.
Because I think that word gets thrown around a lot.
Well, in the last few years, some of the conspiracy theorists out there have been proven right.
So then what is it?
I think it's a legitimate question to question, what exactly is a conspiracy theorist. And I think it's tough, but I think when you say things that Sandy Hook was an inside job, to me, that's a little bit too far.
Yeah.
When you're talking about other things like a deep state, I think Alex
Pizzagate.
Jones,
he was big into Pizzagate. Remember that?
Pizzagate too, right?
He was big into Pizzagate.
Right. And correlation is not necessarily causation, but I think that sometimes he does draw some interesting correlations and put some dots together. Now, whether or not they turn out to be true, I couldn't sit here and say I have a sheet of what he's proposed and what has actually come true.
That'd be
and that's really not what we're here to discuss, but it's the idea that somebody that is on the fringe of a political party, I think is fair to say. Having his platform reinstated, sort of like Trump. Yeah. What I find fascinating is that Elon Musk is kind of going back on his original word when he purchased Twitter and said that he won't reinstate Alex Jones.
That's fascinating to me. I read all about that, and it was interesting because Elon Musk even went to the kid thing, and really was strong about it. Where a lot of times you see Elon Musk, he'll say whatever he wants. He can say whatever he wants, but he won't use that level of language to say no, of course I'm not having Alex Jones in here. The guy's a creep. And then in a year later have that, I think that's interesting.
I think too that, perception for him, I wouldn't say time heals all wounds, but maybe that the Sandy Hook stuff, I think is really what, again, this was old Twitter that banned him. It was old Twitter that banned Trump.
Yeah.
Who has also been reinstated.
Yeah.
For reasons of inciting an insurrection and in Jones's case, for spreading misinformation and all this other
stuff. So I see those as two different things, right? So the Trump versus Jones, if you were to put both of them side by side, the insurrection deal, there's a lot that went into that. As far as it was obvious that, sure, you could say it on this side, but there was just as many on the left trying to push this insurrection narrative. And then when everything started like shaking out, you realize, okay, not everything is meets the eye here. What this side is saying, what this side is saying, there's something probably more in the middle. And so to take Trump out for that, that was a completely politically motivated deal right there. And it's hard it's hard no matter what side you're on to go completely against that argument. With Alex Jones, what he was trying to stand by, even after it was debunked. And it was like, so to what end, right? Like, and it's like, okay, is this your brand, dude? Like, are you, you're getting clicks. I think
he leaned into that a little bit.
Yeah, you're making a ton of money off this thing.
Yeah.
You're getting a ton of mileage, a ton of clicks. Where does that authenticity in what you're actually saying play in rather than, oh, this is my job and I know I can make more money this way?
Yeah, and I think you hit a key part of that, and that's that authenticity part. And I think when he's kind of went over the edge on some of that, specifically the Sandy Hook stuff, I think that started to degrade his, not just necessarily authenticity, but just regardless of what you think of somebody, when they start taking a position that is so far outside of, I don't even know what to call it, but I don't agree with his banning from the beginning, or DJT for that matter.
Right.
I hesitate to use the word absolutionist when it comes to free speech, because we kind of know that it's not. You can't shout fire in a crowded theater. What's the old joke? You can't shout theater in a crowded fire. But what we're seeing is, free speech kind of being weaponized, and also at the same time, it's starting to be silenced and cordoned off in a certain way. And we know this to be true with Twitter and what has come with the Twitter files, and exposing, a lot of government intervention in what should or shouldn't be, the top of your feed, what people shouldn't even be reading to begin with. That I have a really, really big problem with. It's hard to not say that old Twitter just effectively was an arm of government propaganda. Yeah. If you want to use that word.
Yeah.
I feel like now it has gotten better. I'm engaged more on Twitter since then. And in a completely different way than I use our other social media channels. If anybody doesn't follow us, it's at Iron Pig Smoke. Like most
it's
of
worth
our
a follow. It's pretty entertaining.
It is entertaining, and there's a reason for it, and it's a larger sort of exposition on how people handle themselves, how people view a restaurant, and moreover, me as a restaurant owner that has challenged and successfully beat a government that destroyed businesses and lives for the better part of 3 years.
Yeah.
And so many people need to cling to that narrative that the government did the right thing. And to this day, the government, specifically in Michigan, saved lives.
Right.
And I don't know that to be true.
Right.
I've seen plenty of evidence of the contrary.
Yeah.
Now, when talking about free speech, you have to consider the speech that you don't like, you disagree with, and at times you might even think is abhorrent.
Yeah.
Like saying Sandy Hook was an inside job, or saying something like the FBI cooked up a plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer.
Yeah.
I think they're just now prosecuting the last two people. I mean, there was, and I'm not saying it did or didn't happen. I'm not here to say that. I'm just saying X has now become a platform for free speech more so than it was before Elon Musk bought it.
100%.
And if that means giving a platform and or voice to somebody like an Alex Jones or to somebody that's I don't even know what would be the opposite of an Alex Jones when it comes to a left-wing media personality like that. I can't even really make a comparison, and I'm sure that there is one. There's plenty of media loons and celebrities out there that are certainly left-leaning and crazy and say some wild shit. But A, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're wrong, and B, it doesn't necessarily mean that they should be deplatformed.
Well, and I think you hit a good point. You're an absolutist in this, in saying, well, if it's one way for one, it's one way for the other, and that's good. The problem with the opposite argument is it's one way for us, and it's not this way for anybody else. Right? So we're defining what you need to believe truth is.
Or I'm only going to give you 1/10 of the information, and it's the information that I want you to have,
and I'm allowed to
the
do that.
CDC.
Which I think that's what COVID exposed, right? All of a sudden, it was on such a high level. That has the false information in order to control a
I would
narrative.
say several things, but yes, absolutely.
It exposed that big time because it was so big and it was such a reach. And then it became so obvious to everybody, like, they're lying, like somebody's lying to us right now. Right? After those first couple months, and we're all looking at each other like wearing masks and being like, whoa, time out. We're being lied to on some level. What's going on?
And
it took the wool off people's eyes.
It's an easier thing to do these days. Journalism, especially print journalism, and local journalists especially, are kind of a dying breed. The money is not there for a local newspaper or media organization, whatever you want to call it. So you're kind of getting information from journalists that aren't necessarily from this community or that community. For example, it would be like, so during COVID, I at least had journalists that were from Traverse City, right here in Gaylord. They're among the community. They go to city council meetings. They're a little bit knowing more about what the feelings are locally. In my case is what I'm speaking of feelings. But when you start getting to the larger picture, these local news organizations are owned by a USA Today or a Gannett Media or whoever it is. And a lot of times they are left-leaning. And only some, and I know this to be a fact. I've seen it with myself. That's why I started this silly podcast for our dozens and dozens of subscribers that we joke about. But that, I think, is really where it starts from, is that local journalist level. It's not happening. We're not getting that information out there. And then when we are getting that information out there, those up on high, the USA Todays or whomever, are saying this is the narrative that we're picking and that we're sticking with.
And everybody follows suit.
And we can talk about why that might particularly be, but that's probably a podcast for another day, because it's all about money. Right? And it's all about who's being incentivized and who they're incentivizing and all that.
So
all that deep state stuff.
So this happens on both sides, but I think you're right. And so from a reaction to Alex Jones, it is a applauding, so to speak. I had a professor in college and big history guy, so I minored in ancient Near East history. And so what we would do is reenact what they would do back in Greece in ancient philosophical times. And I was actually in Greece at the Parthenon in downtown in Athens back in 2004, and went up on the steps. And what you would have to do is you'd have to have a point. You'd have to have, and so we did this at our university. We'd have this big rock. You have to get up on the rock, and he would get multiple classes to come around as this big crowd around you, and you would have to declare your point. And then it would open up, and anybody listening could shout out a rebuttal against your point, and you had to hold your own and you had to defend yourself.
Interesting.
It was awesome. Terrifying, right? Because you're standing alone on that rock and you had to do that. Well, by removing the rock, right? And only controlling what all the populace gets to hear is actually not good for the overall society.
Right.
Because You need the people who are wrong to get shouted down by everybody. For somebody in the group to be able to go, actually, you're not right. Let me show you why you're not right.
Yeah.
And everybody else to be able to see it out in the open. I think that's all Elon's trying to do.
Yeah.
He's trying to recreate that rock, so to speak.
That's a great
that you get up on, and you got to prove your point. And if you can't prove your point, it's gonna be found out eventually.
And I think that's exactly it too. Is that there has to be debate.
There does.
Civil debate would be preferable, but Twitter certainly is not that.
Sure.
But sure. Twitter X Spaces is a wonderful addition. You can jump in and listen to and contribute to a larger conversation, including Elon Musk.
Yeah.
They just had one the other day, where I think Sunday, after they announced, or Elon announced that he was putting Alex Jones back on Twitter.
And it was a vote, right? It was the people voted.
Well, he did a vote.
Yeah, he did a vote.
It was 70-30 to reinstate Alex Jones.
I know. I saw an opposing argument that basically said, well, there's a lot of bots and AI voting in that, yada, yada, yada. But it was very interesting. He puts it out to vote, and it's like, Roman times, man. Hey, whatever the masses say, let's go do.
And they overwhelmingly said reinstate him. And they did a Spaces with Elon and Alex Jones. I think Vivek Ramaswamy was part of that. Wow. And so that is the beginning. Again, whether or not you agree with anything that Alex Jones is saying, you have to look at the bigger picture. And this isn't someone that is trying to boost someone that has conspiracy theories. This is somebody that is attempting to recreate that rock or the town square, where ideas can come and can be debated.
Yeah.
And they might be the dumbest thing ever, flat earthers. But we'll give you a space to
Let's have some fun. Let's have some fun
to
with
prove
it.
your point.
Absolutely.
And I do that daily on X. And I do it in a various couple of ways. Most of it is through sarcasm. And I found something was very fascinating, that during the pandemic especially, we lost the ability to laugh and joke and gently make fun of each other. I wouldn't say gently bullying, although that's kind of what I do.
Sure.
But people think bullying, oh, that's so mean. It's like, no. I do that to my wife.
Right.
I do that to my best friends. Like that's my love language a bit, if you will. If you haven't read that book, by the way,
there's 6 love languages, not just 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Ian's 6 love languages.
Yes.
Sarcasm.
Write that down.
Yeah, there it is.
Anyways, free speech is monumentally important. I think that it is a good thing that Alex Jones is back. We'll see what kind of rhetoric and things come out of his mouth and out of his platform moving forward. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
And I think that free speech, it is in the forefront of a lot of people's minds, especially with social media.
Yeah.
And here in Michigan, there's some House bills and some other things that are looking to sort of criminalize free speech.
Yeah.
In various forms. But we'll be talking more about free speech here locally and what's going on with a lawsuit over in Traverse City that is looking to do exactly that.
I mean, that's fascinating. It's fascinating your role in that too.
There are people that are trying to file. So they've filed civil rights complaints against a business. Again, you don't have to agree with this person or not, but it's a business that stated a thing on Facebook, never once denied any service to these individuals. But 3 people have filed civil rights complaints for discriminatory advertising. Yeah. And they're seeking money damages for simply doing this right here. Scrolling.
Seeing something.
Reading.
And being offended.
Yep. That's it. In 2023.
We can do that.
Now, there are over 24 of these complaints, according to the Department of Civil Rights. So this is why free speech. So if you say something on social media that causes somebody emotional distress, as these 3 individuals that have filed civil rights complaints, you're now being penalized for your free speech. And on top of, the Department of Civil Rights is seeking to silence your free speech. And in this case, it happens to be right to religion too. But this is why free speech is so important, and why I think that it is a net positive to have Alex Jones and, for that matter, Donald Trump. Again, think what you will of either one of them. From a marketing person, from a person that has been involved with social media from its inception, I find these 2 particular individuals that I just mentioned wildly fascinating to watch, and then the reactions that cause, and not necessarily the things on January 6th, but it does go to show the power that these platforms have, and the influence that comes with it. Because that's important.
Yes, but this so let me ask this question. Is there a line that gets crossed that somebody should be taken off X?
That's a great question, and you probably would have to look closer at the First Amendment and even some of the Supreme Court cases that have sort of come out of this type of thing.
Okay.
And I'm not well versed enough in that yet, but I have a feeling that, so the case that I'm involved with here that we're speaking about in Traverse City, again, I'm not part of the litigation, whatsoever, but I am a free speech advocate. And I do happen to know my way around the arena, so to speak.
Quite well, yeah.
Especially administrative law and these other things. And I happen to have, an illustrious attorney who is able to break things down into dummy pieces for guys like me. But this is why free speech is so important, because it affects so many other things. And in this case, it just happens to be a business owner that said something on social media is now being penalized for it.
Yep.
And it's a whole different situation if somebody were to come into my restaurant and I were to deny them a service based on this individual's religious beliefs.
So on X, and I think that's where the debate is going to come to, right? Is there a line? Can a line be defined? I mean, right now, what is allowed and what's not allowed?
So I'll tell you, the hard line right now is if I say on a social media platform or in any way that can be seen in a mass media type of way, is specifically, I am going to kill Drew at 7:05 p.m. at 1140 Software Drive. So when you're specific and you say that you're making a threat and a specific violent threat, that is shouting fire in a crowded
theater. It is saying bomb on a plane.
Yes. I am going to the White House with a sniper rifle. I'm kidding, by the way.
This is just an example.
Please don't edit this together.
Someday,
when you get very specific about it, that's when action can be taken.
Interesting. It's the bomb in the plane message. So when and I think that's
bomb.
Yeah.
What if I'm a bombardier?
Ben Stiller is hilarious. Speaking of it, one of the funniest Ben Stiller scenes ever. And I saw this, by the way, we have a new coffee shop in town called Brennan's.
Yes.
Great place.
Have an espresso.
Oh my gosh. Loved it.
Get an espresso.
So I've been there a couple times. But I was joking with my daughter, we're going there. So we're going to Brennan's. And like one of my favorite movie scenes of all time is Night at the Museum with, what is it, Seth? I forgot. Anyway, where it's Ben Stiller as a security guard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he calls him Brennan. He's like, no, it's Brendan. And they have this dialogue back. Dude, it is the best.
It's a great movie.
We should post it. Oh my gosh,
Ben Stiller's hilarious.
One of my favorites.
If you just
all
take
time.
A little sticks out of your hair. Clean your ears out.
To rip this from my kung fu grip. Oh, so good.
So, anyways, we probably should wrap it up. We had a good time in here.
Well, you're talking. So, bringing back to crowd.
Yeah,
I loved our thought of the rock and the crowd decides. So you're up on the rock and you're defending your point, and the crowd decides, and that's essentially what Elon Musk is doing, even to the point of having the hey, let's put it to vote. Yeah. What do we get? And obviously from my place, I'm all about groups doing something. Yeah. We created a crowd pricing mechanism in order to sell stuff, right? And I think when we're looking at a society, it feels good to, like, as a group, make decisions and go, oh, we think this or we don't think this. I don't know that you can make a good argument that targeting individuals that don't directly incite violence, right? One, defining the bomb on the plane, what that is, right? If they don't cross that line, but they have opinions, but it's an open platform that allows people to shout down those opinions and very quickly fact check them or very quickly prove they're wrong so the crowd can see it, right? Man, to me, I don't think you can make a good argument that that's wrong.
I would agree with that.
I don't think you can.
Unfortunately, it seems like there are a lot of people that are making adjacent arguments.
Sure.
And again, I'm open to having that discussion.
Yeah.
But we've got to have, diversity is important in many, many aspects. We hear about it all the time these days, right?
Yeah.
So why is diversity of opinion so frowned upon?
Right.
Just because you don't like it, why does that mean that it's wrong or that person shouldn't be able to express that? If nobody is being hurt or harmed, right? And I know, again, I say hurt or harmed, and people want to take that and say words are violence, words hurt.
Yeah, emotional harm. Sure.
And I think it was Chris Rock that said, words only hurt when they're written on a brick. And that's not too long ago. I think that was last year in his last stand-up. But to the larger point, you can stand up on that rock and say the most dumb things out there imaginable, and people still do. And I'll fight for your right to be able to do 100%. That, right?
Yep.
And that's kind of what the Iron Pig has done for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Even in the face of people hating the Iron Pig that have never once been here.
And you specifically.
And me specific. I'm okay with that.
Sure.
Because that only impacts me. But, if you do something to harm, we've got 20-some people that work here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of just ignorance personified, especially if you don't really know exactly what's going on. But the idea, though, is that we were fighting for something, even though you didn't agree with it, you're still benefiting from it.
Yes.
Because in our situation and in the salon lawsuit,
true.
You may not agree with what the salon owner said on Facebook.
No.
But what she's actually fighting for
it's different than
is freedom of religion and freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And again, you don't have to agree with it, but at the end of the day, you don't want your speech to be weaponized.
Correct.
And we can't even get into this right now, but you also don't want your speech compelled. Because that's the next thing that's coming, is forcing you to say something.
Right. So
that's why these things
fascinating
are monumentally important.
Great point. And that's deep, by the way. So, the cool thing is we touched on a very hey, this is reaction. Alex Jones back on X. But what you just talked about there actually went to a depth level. And I think that's pretty cool. I think people listening gives you something to ponder and think about, because everything here that we're talking about is very real. This is our culture right now in our history, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking back, and what's happened in the last few years. You look back 50 years from now and go, oh my gosh, we lived through that time. And wow.
One of the best things I ever did, wrapping up real quick, I will say, one of the best things I ever did was participated in debate class in high school.
Yeah.
My older sister was a phenomenal debater. And I think maybe as a freshman I took debate class, and you're forced to in debate class to defend both sides of a particular issue
that you don't agree with.
And it just so happened that when I was a freshman 2 years ago, 8 years, no, too long ago, socialized medicine, championed by Hillary Clinton at the time, was the chosen issue for that year for debate. So you had to defend both sides. Now, and I don't think I knew at the time I was libertarian, but as a person that didn't believe in socialist ideas, like state or federal sponsored healthcare, I had to, in competition, at the flip of a coin, basically, take one side or the other. And I had to be prepared with arguments in a little folio folder, pro and con, for and against
so important
Canadian style healthcare.
Right.
And little did I know that it was actually preparing me, years later to take a certain stance on Obamacare and these other things, which is not exactly the same, but it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
So debate class, and I don't know, I don't have kids, and I'm not sure how debate classes are attended anymore these days. That's a good point. Levels of participation.
Right.
I took it because it wasn't required, but it was one of those language arts sort of requirements or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I did, and my sister sort of drugged me along, but she was good at it.
They were a blast. I love debate class.
And I was like, man, if I could be anything like that, then I could talk my way out of it.
Oh, this was good. This was good. Well, there it is. Ian's reaction to Alex Jones being back on X. Hey, if you want to see more, where can they find you, Ian?
Oh,
where can they find you on X?
They can find me on X at Iron Pig Smoke.
Iron Pig Smoke.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to mention real quick before we go, time is running out on barbecue sauce that we have for sale.
Yeah.
We're doing buy 4, get the 5th one free at ironpigmerch.com. You don't need a promo code. It does it automatically for you. Just plunk 5 in the cart and hit purchase. The pint of barbecue sauce. These are fantastic. Those have been selling like crazy lately.
Barbecue sauce.
Appreciate everybody tuning in, hanging out with us. Let us know what you think. Drop a comment in here, subscribe, all that stuff.
Love it.
Drew, thanks for your opinion, hanging out with me.
Of course, anytime.
In the modified studio here.
I love this. This was comfortable. This was good. Hope everybody enjoyed today's show.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, bye.